In this video, we're going to talk about the Pythagorean Theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and it helps us find the missing side of a right triangle. So if we already know two sides, we can use this equation to help us find the third. So a and b represent the two legs of our right triangle, c represents the hypotenuse. So we're going to go ahead and see how it's labeled here. A and B don't really matter because of the way that the equation is set up, but C is always across from our right angle. That's our hypotenuse. So if we have a triangle and we want to check to see if it is a right triangle, if we plug in the values to our equation, then if it's equal, if it works out, then it tells us it is for sure a right triangle. So a couple examples here. Let's say our side lengths are 3, 4, and 5. So this shorter one would probably be 3. This would be 4. Hypotenuse would be 5. And 3 squared plus 4 squared gives us 25, which is equal to 5 squared. So 3, 4, and 5 would represent the sides of a right triangle. If we had 7, 10, and 12, if we double check that, we end up with 149, which does not equal 144. So that tells us that those three sides could not be the sides of a right triangle. And if we're trying to figure out if it's a right triangle, then we don't necessarily know that we have a right angle. So you might be wondering, how do we know which of those sides to plug in? Well, the hypotenuse is always going to be the longest side of a right triangle. So that means the largest number that you have has to go in as that C value. So a couple examples here. Let's say that we know the two legs, so 4 and 7, but we're trying to find what the hypotenuse is. We're going to plug 4 and 7 in for A and B. So once we plug that in, we can just square those values, and then we combine those, so we get 65. We're trying to solve for C, so we have to get rid of the squared. So we take square root of both sides. If you want an exact answer, you can leave it as square root of 65, but typically in these examples, we need a value, and those are typically going to be decimals. So we end up with 8.1 for our hypotenuse. In this example, we know the hypotenuse, but we are trying to solve for one of the legs, and that's usually going to be an extra step. So again, we can go ahead and plug 9 in for our A value. It doesn't really matter, but that 13 has to go in for C. So now we, as we did in the first example, we can square those values. And now we have to move this 81 over because we're trying to get this B by itself. So we subtract 81. Now we get B squared equals 88. We take square root again. And the square root of 88 gives us 9.4 once we round. And so we've got 9.4 as this missing length.